The foundation of this marine construction project is already compromised by its environment. Decades of tidal erosion have scoured the shale bed beneath a beachfront pier, leaving its structural trestles, the weathered pilings supporting the decking, critically unsafe. The construction team faces two main objectives. First, they must excavate and replace the damaged pier trestle using a watertight enclosure known as a cofferdam. Second, they are tasked with building a concrete retaining wall around the adjacent visitor car park. The client establishes a rigorous administrative baseline early on. Before site preparation begins, they verify the workers' competence records, review the construction phase plan, and hand over a comprehensive health and safety file containing precise geological data. Physical welfare provisions are equally thorough. The client secures a dedicated temporary accommodation unit, equipped with rest areas, changing rooms, and a kitchen. Out on the water, a fully equipped rescue boat, complete with underwater breathing apparatus, is mandated to be crewed at all times. With sufficient funding allocated, detailed documentation approved, and high-quality welfare facilities in place, the project begins with a textbook safety foundation. On paper, the risks are controlled. During the pre-construction phase meetings, the client reviews the site risk assessment and asks if a formal traffic management plan is necessary. The principal contractor decides to bypass this requirement entirely. This decision rests on an assumption: heavy plant movement will be isolated to a single tracked excavator on the damaged pier. This view treats the site as a closed system, completely ignoring external variables like material delivery vehicles and public interfaces near the car park. By legally signing off on the absence of a traffic plan, the contractor creates a latent defect. This is a systemic flaw engineered into the project's administrative foundation, waiting quietly for the right set of circumstances to trigger an incident. Relying on a static, idealized version of the worksite inevitably creates blind spots. When dynamic variables are introduced, the paperwork offers zero physical protection. Before operations commence, the site manager gathers the crew for a safety briefing. They outline the permit-to-work system, a strict documentary control process for high-risk tasks, and mandate that the site supervisor will conduct 2 physical inspections daily to enforce it. During the briefing, Worker A raises a direct concern. They are assigned to multiple projects simultaneously and express severe anxiety about the aggressive time pressure and their heavy workload. Management dismisses the concern immediately. Instead of adjusting the immediate workload, the site manager relies on a theoretical promise to recruit more workers in the future. The manager concludes the briefing by asking for verbal confirmation of understanding. Most workers nod and say yes, despite several of them tuning out and actively ignoring the talk. This is superficial compliance. Worker A, however, gives no confirmation. They remain completely silent. This silence identifies a failure in the briefing's feedback loop. It serves as a leading indicator of future breakdowns in procedural compliance. Out on the pier, the high-risk engineering tasks proceed precisely to plan. The cofferdam is successfully constructed, heavily fortified with primary and standby diesel pumps to control water ingress, and secured with vertical ladder access and rigid guardrails. The team utilizes a dedicated banksman, a trained spotter, to carefully guide the heavy tracked excavator down into the enclosure. The operation is backed by steel pilings, establishing multiple redundant layers of physical protection. That as the engineering controls hold firm, the human factors rapidly degrade. Worker A, overwhelmed by the workload, cannot maintain the pace of the rest of the crew. The mounting fatigue culminates in an angry, defensive shouting match with a colleague on the deck. The site supervisor pulls Worker A aside. While the supervisor is highly empathetic to the emotional distress, they offer only a delayed promise to liaise with other managers later. There is no immediate intervention to pause the workers' tasks. This localized strain is beginning to spread. Several other workers are already absent due to stress, forcing the remaining team members to absorb the missing labor and resulting in a measurable drop in work quality. Physical engineering controls cannot mitigate psychological hazards. An emotionally compromised, severely fatigued worker is an active hazard to themselves and the site, regardless of the structural safety securing the perimeter. Meanwhile, the secondary task of building the visitor car park retaining wall begins. The worker assigned to operate the cement mixer arrives late and attempts to make up for lost time. Rushing onto the beach, the worker commits immediate personal protective equipment failures. Wearing a short-sleeved shirt and sandals, they begin manually handling dry concrete directly on the wet sand. The worker then forces 20-kilogram bags of heavy mix into a petrol-powered mixer with a strict maximum safe load capacity of 15 kilograms. The mechanical safety of the equipment is equally compromised. The mixer has an exposed drive belt visible through a hole, and the worker entirely bypasses the damaged front guard while loading the drum. When the overloaded drum inevitably jams, the worker skips the fault reporting protocol entirely. They reach in with a shovel to manually scrape wet concrete out of the rotating drum. By the end of the shift, the occupational health consequences are severe. The worker reports to the supervisor, with contact dermatitis causing itchy hands and eyes, a sore throat from inhaling cement dust, and acute back pain from poor manual handling. When direct supervision is absent, self-imposed time pressure incentivizes workers to bypass basic safety protocols. This transforms a low-complexity task into a high-risk chemical and mechanical exposure event. As the Pier refurbishment concludes, the heavy excavator is moved to the visitor car park, sitting idle as it awaits a vehicle transporter. The excavator driver is operating with a severe, uncorrected equipment defect. Deeply cracked reversing mirrors heavily impair visibility, rendering them effectively blind to the rear. The site supervisor steps in to act as the banksman to guide the machine. They signal the driver to reverse, but seconds later, the supervisor makes a fatal error. They turn their back on the live moving vehicle to answer a personal mobile phone call. At that exact moment, the external variable arrives. An unexpected delivery vehicle enters the car park, skidding aggressively on loose sand, directly toward the blind spot of the reversing excavator. Both drivers slam their brakes, halting inches away from a severe collision. Because the principal contractor omitted the traffic management plan in Act 1, there are no physical barriers, no segregated transport routes, and no speed controls in place to separate external deliveries from heavy plant machinery. Shaken, the newly licensed delivery driver begs the supervisor to hide the near miss from their parent organization, fearing they will lose their job. The site supervisor agrees. They promise to report it internally to the site manager, but deliberately suppress the external report to the delivery company. Agreeing to hide a near miss actively destroys site safety culture. It prevents organizational learning, suppresses critical data, and guarantees that the latent system defect remains fully intact for the very next shift. The project launched with highly detailed health and safety files, rigorously checked worker competence records, and heavily documented permit-to-work systems. Yet it still suffered significant chemical exposures and a near miss involving heavy machinery. Administrative controls are inherently fragile. Documents and procedures assume perfect compliance. Site reality is defined by distraction, equipment failure, and fluctuating workloads. Unmanaged human factors act as the bridge that destroys these paper controls. Time pressure and fatigue consistently override training and documented procedures. Furthermore, occupational health risks daily intervention as heavy machinery and deep excavations. A safety system is only as effective as the site supervisor's willingness to actively enforce it in real time. Without direct observation and immediate correction, safety exists only on paper. To extract the core lessons from this case study, we can anchor the failures into 10 strict operational rules. 1. A permit to work is completely useless if the workforce does not genuinely understand it. 2. Superficial compliance hides latent risk. Nodding heads do not equal safe execution. 3. Traffic management plans must always account for variable, external deliveries. 4. A banksman must never, under any circumstances, turn their back on moving plant machinery. 5. Workload stress must be managed as a tangible physical hazard. 6. Material loads must strictly match equipment capacity limits. Overload is a guarantee of mechanical failure. 7. Never bypass or operate without machine guards. 8. All mechanical faults must be reported and repaired immediately. Improvised fixes escalate risk. 9. Exposed skin interacting with wet cement is a severe occupational health failure requiring immediate protective intervention. 10. Near misreporting is a non-negotiable cornerstone of safety culture. Hiding data ensures repeat failures. Real-world site safety requires active management of human behavior and operational friction in the field, far beyond the theoretical controls found in a planning binder.